Hey, it's Drybear. World of Warcraft, the War Within expansion, early access starts in just a few days. And whether you've been following the updates for the expansion leading up to now, or you're someone who has been kind of just wanting to jump in live once the update is in, or maybe you're someone who wants to jump into World of Warcraft for the first time, today I want to recap everything that's going into the expansion as quickly as I can and as simply as I can, just so you know what's new about the game and what you should look forward to. So with this new expansion, they are deciding to update a lot of their archaic old systems that many new MMOs have already innovated on and created better versions of. So things like making account-wide progress. Of course, there's going to be brand new content in the game, raids, dungeons, a brand new endgame activity. There's a new allied race option to change into, which allows even the horde reputations and races to have access to the dwarf animation set, which is pretty cool with the Earthen. And we also have Delves, which is a new weekly endgame activity for solo and small groups that are smaller form content. So if you're someone who doesn't like pushing high Mythic Plus with hardcore groups, or maybe you just want to hang out with your spouse or with your friend to do some short 10 to 20 minute delves to have endgame progress without having to worry about raids and guilds and massive groups, this is going to be a great option for you. Now I'm going to go through this as if you are familiar with World of Warcraft. If there is interest in me doing a beginner's guide to catch up new players or old returning players to the game, let me know in the comments down below and we can certainly do that. The first thing worth mentioning is the rework to the talent system. This is something that they do with pretty much every expansion. There's a shifting of talents. They want to reinstill new ideas and builds for every class and every comprehensible combination of things by keeping forward with some of the traditions they had in previous expansions and also introducing new mechanics, new talents, new combos. So they are sticking with the split talent trees that we got in previous expansion so that you have the class talent tree here on the left. So we're still going to have the class talent tree. There's some shifts here for some classes, some more than others, but there's still going to be some shifts around, some new talents and some moves on where these actually go. And then you have the spec talent tree on the right. So this one is going to be the same or mostly the same for all of your specializations within a class, depending on what class you choose. And then the spec talent tree is still going to be over here on the right. Again, they just did some balance changing and some shifting to that. So you're still going to see similar builds to what we saw in Dragonflight, but there's going to be a whole bunch of new options and combinations that are really cool. And they're keeping some things like we still have like Shadowlands abilities and things like that that are really, really cool. The big new addition outside of cleanups and reorganization on the talent tree for the War Within is going to be the hero talent system, which at first sounds like it's kind of intense, but it's actually not. It's almost like having your artifact weapon back from Legion, where you have a separate small form talent tree that you can specialize into. Each class has one hero talent tree available for each of their specializations. So all classes will have 2 or 3 or 4. So like if you're a demon hunter, you have 2. If you're any other class besides druid, you have 3. And if you're druid, you have 4 different specializations, hero talent trees. And they are heavily themed. So you can see by the image and the description here, they're bringing back their favorite 2-word combo, class fantasy, but these are very much specialized into a kind of play with a lot of thematic elements to it, and you can specialize into that. To prevent you from just having a very boring one-track mind on these, of the specializations that you have available for the hero talent trees, every spec can choose from 2 of your available options, which means that like if you have, like for example with Monk, we have a tank, a healer, and a DPS. The DPS can choose from 2 of the 3. The healer can choose from 2 of the 3, and same for the tank. And that way, if you wanted to incorporate more damage in your tank build, more healing in your DPS build, or if you have a pure DPS class, maybe you want the utility aspects of a different specialization. Maybe you want to play Destruction Warlock, but you want to borrow some of the class fantasy from Demonology because you think it fits your build better. So you'll be able to activate one of these, but you have a choice of 2 no matter what spec you are overall. Now, when you activate these, you will have this kind of fixed tree here. This is something you have exactly the amount of points that you need in order to finish the entire tree. The first one is free. This is the baseline for the overall hero talent specialization. And this one is already active when you activate the tree, and you'll get this right away at level 71. So you'll have that active and ready to go, and anything that's specific to that specialization. So for example, it says I have to cast Celestial Brew to get this bonus. If I'm on a spec that doesn't have Celestial Brew, it will change what activates that. So you'll still be able to use it on all specs and have that spread around. Then you will have enough points to go through and select all of these and fill the entire tree out. However, each tree is going to have some number of optional choices, like those split choices that you have, these kind of choices here. So you can actually just choose between these. Once you get all of your hero talent points, which are separate from your regular points, you can fill out the tree, but then you're going to have it change up based on which of these choices you choose that have different impacts on what your character does and that sort of thing. So not only will you have 2 different builds you can go with at the high level by specifying this, you'll have your class tree, you will have your specialization tree, and then you will have your hero talent tree. And from there, you will choose between 2 different hero talent trees. And within those hero talent trees, you will make choices between different options on a few of the nodes, like 3 or 4 different nodes total. So it gives you a little bit more expression with your build and allows you to specialize more, which I think is kind of a cool middle ground approach. And I think this is what made Legion one of my favorite expansions in general, is it didn't really try to redesign the core of the class. It kind of added layers on top of it that allow you to specialize how you played, and added a lot of fantasy in it, because you got the Shadow Priest dagger, or you went and got the staff for your character for discipline, and it allowed you to really create your own experience and follow through with that fantasy while also allowing for a lot of expression with your character overall. I think it's a very simple but very elegant system that allows you to create some really cool builds with the specs that you're already playing. Next, let's talk about warbands. Blizzard has a really strong attachment to putting characters around a campfire, and they want to have it in WoW now too. This is something that I am shocked it took them this long to add into World of Warcraft, but if you think about it, it's basically, I kind of relate it to rosters in Lost Ark, where you can have a lot of your very grindy aspects of the game, currency, reputation, achievements, sharing gear and items and materials and reagents. All of that is being moved to be more account-wide, like most modern MMOs do now, rather than the very old school, cryptic, archaic strategy of making you have to mail items between characters or re-level reputations 1,000 times for every character that you have. So warbands are their movement to create an account-wide representation of you as a player in World of Warcraft. So a lot of your activities that are character-specific in previous expansions, Dragonflight and before, are now becoming account-wide, which is very, very good. Now, keep in mind that this has already started to work in through the pre-patch for the expansion, and we'll get a lot of the features finish out when the expansion goes live. Warbands are currently set to be region-specific, so you won't have a new warband for every realm that you're on. You can share it across realms. However, if you change regions, so you go from like North America to Europe, you will have a new warband for that region. You can only have 1 per region. The first big addition to warbands is going to be a shared warband bank. So when you go to banks, normally in World of Warcraft, you'll have a personal bank that has bag slots that you can unlock and put bags onto, and you'll have a reagent bank as well that you can expand on. However, in the War Within, you will have a warband bank, which will allow you to have a shared bank between all of your characters. Wow. So now you can place items in the warband bank, you can go to another character, and you can withdraw from the warband bank. There will be up to 5 tabs that you can add here, each tab going up in price, with the last one being an exorbitant 2.5 million gold in cost, but it starts out pretty meaningless. You can do 1,000 gold, 25,000 gold, not too bad, and you can keep expanding this. It's a nice account level progression for you as you farm more gold. You can also deposit with 1 button all items that are specifically warbound, and we'll talk about that in a second, but you can also deposit and withdraw currency. So you can actually put gold in here, and then you can go on your other characters and withdraw the gold. You no longer have to mail items between characters. Amazing that we have this in 2024. Very cool. Next is a very cool addition of Warbound until equipped items. So what these are is that when you're doing endgame activities on your main character, or any character really, you will sometimes get Warbound until equipped. You can see that here on this item, Warbound until equipped. What this means is this is going to be a generic item that all characters in your warband can equip. It'll be 1 tier below the activity you're doing. So if you're doing something at champion level or hero level, it'll drop down 1 level. So it's not as good as the gear you would normally get, but it's close, and it gives you a nice little option there. Warbound until equipped can be thrown into your warband bank, and then you can go on another character and pull it out of your warband bank and equip it. And as the name would suggest, it is warbound until you equip it. So once you put it on an alt, it becomes soulbound. This gives you the option to do activities end game difficult activities on your strongest character, your main or your second main, whatever it is. You get item drops that are high item level, very strong items, and then you can then give those items that normally would be soulbound because you dropped it in an end game activity directly to an alt to gear them out, which means you don't have to start by doing like heroic dungeons and M0s going into the expansion for your alts. You can actually play your main character and gear out your secondary alts and get them caught up without having to worry about doing earlier activities for them because you've already done that on your main character. Next up is transmogs, and this is something that I wish was available like 15 years ago. The amount of transmogs I have farmed, like doing the same raid with different classes, I could have saved myself a bunch of time in farming these up. But the way this works is you'll be able to get drops and then unlock the transmog even if you don't currently have the correct ability to equip that item. So for example, if you did an old school raid, like you went and did a Shadowlands raid or like an old like original raid just to get the transmog so you think they're really cool, you normally, if it dropped plate and you were running a cloth class, you wouldn't get that transmog. You would have to come back on a plate character and clear that in order to unlock the transmogs. With the new Warband system, you'll now be able to unlock all of the loot items that you get. As soon as it drops and goes in your inventory and it loses its tradable status, you will get that transmog option for your character, whether you can equip it or not, with one major exception. Class-specific items or anything that's like Demon Hunter exclusive, for example, you will have to be on a Demon Hunter to unlock that. But if it's not class-specific, it's only restricted by weapon type or by armor type. It means you can loot that transmog, which is great because then again you can go on your main to transmog runs of old raids and old content, and every item you're getting on that character can now be added to your transmog collection, whether you can use it or not. Huge win for overall account progress. Also, I'm on the beta right here on a test server, so I don't have my heirlooms here, but the heirloom system, which is usually meant for leveling up alts with strong twink items, is also going to be transferred into a Warbound system, which means that if you create a burnished Helm of Might and you modify it and increase it and add stuff to it to enhance it, you're not going to have multiples of it and have to worry about making a new one for every character. You will be able to transfer them between Warbound characters so that once you make one of them and enhance it, you're good to go. Additionally, achievements are mostly turning to Warbound specific, which means if one character gets it, it will be added to your Warband overall. There are some older achievements that don't fit that bill, and they said they want to go back and update those over time, but going forward, and as many achievements as they were able to do for the launch of War Within will be moved over to an account-wide progress. They've already been doing account-wide achievements, going back for quite a while, but they're adding more of those and committing to do it account-wide, Warband-wide going forward. Also, reputations for as many as possible are going to be account-wide as well, which is something that we've wanted for a very long time in World of Warcraft. You won't have to switch over, like some, especially even with the newer expansions, having to go and get reputation for every new reputation for that expansion on every single character over and over and over is just, it's just mind-boggling that we're still doing that. So going forward, all of the new reputations, or most of them, will be in the Warband. So once you do them once, you'll unlock it for all your characters. There are still old, like really old reputations that they've mentioned won't fit this bill, like they don't function that way, they're just not built that way, and they said that they're still going to be trying to update that as often as they can going forward, but at least more of the current reputations and moving forward, the new reputations will be Warband specific, so once you grind it out, you'll get it. The big question you're probably asking is the same one I was asking, is how are they going to reconcile the reputation? I was hoping they would add it all together, so if anything was just shy of Exalted, it would be finished. They're not. They're just taking whatever character has the highest progress, they're taking that progress and setting that to be the Warband, so whichever character got the furthest, if it's not finished, that's going to be your progress, and then any progress gained on any character after that will add to the total and get you your Warband reputation. Now, the next big question you're going to ask outside of reputation and gold is, can we transfer currencies? And the answer is yes. So just like with the bank option, you go to the bank and you can deposit gold into your Warband bank. So we go to Warband bank here, we can deposit gold, whatever we want to put in there, we can put that in, but there's also going to be currency transferring between characters. The way they implemented this is that it's not going to be a global shared currency value. It's just going to be a way for transferring currency between characters. I was kind of hoping for a global value just to make it simpler and easier, kind of like Lost Ark, like all of your currencies are shared. But in this case, that's not the case, so you'll just have to deal with this one here. The only way to transfer currency is go to the currency tab, click on the currency and click transfer. It only transfers one way from other characters to the character you're currently playing. So if you want to transfer Dragon Isle supplies, you can transfer over from other characters to the character you're currently playing. They also allow you to do time warped badges and some of the older stuff as well, which allows you to put more and more into that process. But now you can pile resources that were previously locked to a character onto a different character inside of your warband. They also updated it so flight paths are going to be warband wide as well. So any flight path you've unlocked on one of your characters will be shared between all characters. And they're also going to give you a buff in the new zone for the War Within that allows you your flight path travel speed to be a little bit faster as well. Additionally, your companion level in the new endgame activity, Delves, is going to be shared across your warband, which is a great transition to talk about Delves now. For the longest time, we have been desperately wanting a new endgame activity that isn't just PvP, Mythic Plus, and Raid. And so they're adding in Delves into WoW for the War Within. Delves will be short-form dungeon content that can be done either solo or in small groups of like 2 to 5 if you'd like. So this is meant for people that aren't trying to go to the highest of Mythic Plus keys or don't want to join a guild to do Mythic raids, but they do want to do fun, progressive endgame activities, potentially either by themselves with solo content or maybe just with a spouse or a friend or two that you can actually progress through properly. These are going to be targeted around 10 to 20 minutes. There are different regions and locales that fit with this, and they're all going to have their own little story, little boss and encounter that you go through. And at the very end of this 10 to 20 minute session, you will have a vault that you can open, get loot and other free items inside of it, and then you'll progress through it. There are tiers to it. These tiers get harder and harder as you go along. They'll get new affixes, different defenses, different offenses, debuffs, things like that, and you'll be able to bring your companion with you, which has a level. And they straight up gave us the FromSoft fog gate as we go into Delves to keep it interesting. The Delves themselves, like I said, will have tiers that you can go through. Before level 80, you will have access to tier 1 through 3. Starting at level 80, you will get tier 4, and as you unlock better and better gear and progress all the way through Earthen, you'll unlock the higher tiers. And these will have affixes, effects, bonuses, all kinds of things going on that you'll be able to play with, as well as more and more loot as you go higher and higher through the tier system. Each season of Delves will have their own companion that you can bring along with you. For season 1 of the War Within, it's going to be Bran Bronzebeard, and kind of like Chocobos in Final Fantasy XIV, they come along with a whole bunch of customizable options to make your experience better. Right off the bat, you can choose to be a damage dealer or a healer, depending on how you want Bran to play with you. You'll have a whole bunch of passives and abilities that you can level up and make stronger, and different things that they can do with you. They can spawn healing, they can spawn orbs, they can spawn pets and dinosaurs, all kinds of things to fill in whatever role you want to fill in a group or party in your own personal delve experience. You can have your companion fill that gap to make your experience complete. At the end of a delve, you will push in towards the delve vault and get a bunch of loot, currencies, coins. You'll complete quests and get all kinds of unlocks. And then once you're done with this, you'll be able to continue on to another delve or go even deeper on more difficult delves to complete. On top of this, the Great Vault, the weekly activity vault, will now be replacing the PvP row with the delves now instead. So you can do raids, Mythic Plus, and delves for your end game vault selection. And PvP, they're just going to give you more conquest so that you can buy the items you want and make it less RNG, so that week 1, week 2, week 3 isn't so all over the place for PvP, where some people get a weapon and some people don't, and then climbing on arena gets kind of awkward. Along with the expansion is a brand new playable allied race, the Earthen. So this is a dwarven set. They pretty much have the dwarven animations and all of that. I'll probably be playing 1 or 2 on some of my characters. They have some pretty cool racial passives that are neat as well. And again, if you're a horde player like me, it does allow you to play with the alliance set character that gives us a little bit more freedom in that as well. So we'll have an option for that. They will also have, like, they're kind of like Dwergar. They're like the magic infused dark dwarves. So they'll have the option to kind of play around with different crystals sticking out of their body. So if we randomize this a little bit, you can see that they are like rock earthen, the earthen dwarves. So they have that option there, and they're pretty cool overall to get some nice customization options. They also have an interesting racial that I don't know how well it's going to go over, but it is there. They have an empower skill that can either do damage or heal, depending on what you want it to do. If you haven't seen the Empower skills, like you weren't playing through Dragonflight, it's a skill that progresses forward, and based on what level you use, like when you stop the channeling, you'll get a different effect for it. It came with the new dragon type, so you'll be able to play with that there. That's a pretty interesting one. And the other one that's kind of interesting to me is that they can't eat food because they only eat gems, so you won't be able to get food buffs. You'll be able to set a specific stat to get a food buff from, but you won't be able to eat normal food. And I'm wondering if there's going to be, I mean, how does this affect, like if a feast goes down, like how does this affect things like that? So I'm wondering if this is going to be a problem going forward, but it is kind of an interesting take on a racial passive. And they also get increased armor from gear as well, which will help some of the specific classes that may need some boost on that to make them a little bit stronger, which is kind of an interesting take as well. As per usual, it comes with 8 new dungeons themed to the new expansion. The 8 listed here, they all have some pretty interesting bosses and some new mechanics. And one thing you'll notice as I click through these real quick is that they are all either 3 bosses or 4 bosses. There aren't any mega dungeons that are incredibly long. They're going to save that for mega dungeons when they release them. So you have the option to kind of complete these in a very timely manner, and it makes them a little more balanced together when we start doing Mythic Plus as well, which is kind of interesting. And of course, with the Mythic Plus season, they're going to take 4 old dungeons and 4 new dungeons to put them together to create a season so that you can keep it interesting as you go from season to season. Another thing worth mentioning, which was in the last season for Dragonflight and will be available here, I wasn't playing in season 4, so I kind of played the first half of Dragonflight, haven't played other games since. So it's something that's worth noting because it is going to be continuing in the War Within, and that is they squished down and rebalanced the distribution of normal, heroic, and Mythic Plus dungeons. So before, what it used to be is there were normal dungeons, which most people skipped anyways, unless you were a newer player just trying to get into endgame content. Then there were heroic dungeons, which you played maybe 1 or 2 of them on launch day, but you kind of pretty much everyone went to M0, and then M0 only got played for like the first week before M Plus started, and then no one ever ran Mythic 0 ever again because all the better gear is going to be inside of Mythic Plus, so all of that was going to be there overall. And then they wanted to rebalance that to be a little bit more reasonable and a little bit more widespread so that the people that are coming to the game, they can actually play the dungeons and queue up, and they're not forced to automatically jump into Mythic Plus 15 to plus 25 and up if they want to do anything meaningful. So the way the system works is going to be normal dungeons are staying the same. That'll be a way for you to expose yourself to the dungeon mechanics, the boss fights, the pulls, all of that, and it will help people kind of get base level gear as they fresh hit level 80. Then the heroic dungeons are going to be equivalent to M0. So again, if you're playing in season 4, you already know this. If you're coming back to the game or you're new, you may not. So the old M0, which was done once on the first week, is now going to be the heroic difficulty, and then M0 goes up to Mythic Plus 10. Previously, we had seasonal affixes that wouldn't turn on until plus 10 anyways, so it's pretty much the same thing, and it also means that up to plus 10 from the last season, or from 2 seasons ago and before, is now going to be not timed. Like, up until plus 10 from the old system is something that is not going to be timed. You can get gear from it, and allows you to play through and get the dungeons right, and then going into Mythic Plus after M0 means that it's kind of like minus 10 from what it was before, so the plus 15 benchmark that a lot of people used for KSM and things like that is now going to be M0 or like like plus 5. M0 is plus 10 and it goes up from there. So when people are pushing end game like plus 27, plus 28, they're going to be pushing plus 17, plus 18, plus 19. And of course, it means we have a brand new raid with a brand new raid tier that is themed as we go into the center of the earth and find out about the Nerubians and the Earthian and all of that there. So brand new raid tier. I believe it has 8 bosses in that with new gear, new tier sets that you can find online that are all pretty cool, pretty interesting, and it gives us more content there. And they're also going to be allowing you to upgrade the mythic level gear a little bit further than before to give you more incentive to go for mythic gear. But now you have not just PvP, Mythic Plus and Raid, you have Delves added to the mix, you have hero talents and new talent reorganization to make the characters feel a little bit newer and fresher. Warbands add account level progress so that you can keep your progress between characters, so we're not feeling like we're still playing an MMO in 1999. And of course, we have the new allied race with Earthen coming along. There has been some speculation that we'll get more allied races down the line like we did in previous expansions. There has been like half elves and like half trolls and like under trolls and things like that data mined and speculated, but I don't know if Blizzard has ever officially confirmed this, but there's new models for those kind of races in the game as well. So the video is already way too long as it is. I just wanted to cover all of War Within for people that are coming back to the game or just getting started, but also for myself so I can get a recap on what made it into the final version before we go into the launch in a couple days time. And of course, if you want more guides on War Within or WoW guides coming from me, let me know in the comments down below. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.